So I finally got my bike, thank God, and it's only just stopped raining. It's been pissing down with rain the last, what, 2-3 days solid, and this is the first opportunity that I've had to get out on my new S1000RR. When I say new, it's new to me. It's a 2017 Generation 3 model. So yeah, new to me, but it's not a brand new bike. And the first thing I've got to say is when I was buying or looking at buying a RR, I didn't buy the 2019-2020 model for a couple of reasons. One, I just didn't want to stretch myself financially because I need a new bathroom, just being honest. The other thing as well is looking at a lot of the reviews on YouTube about the bike. There's some things that I'm really not sure I could live with. One being the power delivery. I've heard or I've seen a lot of reviews from experienced bikers that it's got too many nannies on it, which doesn't allow you to really exploit the power. So in second gear, full throttle, there's no wheelie in and all that sort of stuff. It's just the electronic rider aids are just too intrusive. That was one thing. Another thing as well is, and I don't know if it's a setting on the bike, and if you've got a brand new 1000RR, i.e. the Generation 4 model, maybe you can let me know, but when you put the cruise control on and you take your hand off the accelerator, the cruise control turns off, which kind of defeats the object of having cruise control. So that was another thing. The other thing as well, and this is just personal opinion, I don't like the TFT new colour dash. I'm not a fan of it. I like the old tack. I like this. I'm just not into that TFT display. I had it on the loan bike that I got from BMW, and it's just not my cup of tea. And the reason is I don't want to be looking at an iPad to get the information from a bike. It's just a personal thing, I guess, but I much prefer this. And this isn't the bike, the exact bike that I put a deposit down on initially. The one I was going to buy was a 2018, and it had about 2,000 miles on the clock, so it was practically a brand new bike. And the guy who sold it to BMW, who subsequently I met, who was in the showroom, was an old dude, and you know, basically he sold it because he was crippled and old and had a hook for a hand. But all joking aside, it was just uncomfortable for him, and the reason I explain that is to let you know that was my first choice of buying an S1000RR. It was basically brand new, and I thought, yeah, I'm not going to go for the 2019 model. It just seems as though that, I don't know, I'm not going to get the raw experience of the 2017, the 2018 sort of Generation 3 model. That's why I love this bike. Look at that. No hands, cruise control, third gear, 20 mile an hour. This bike is so well mannered. You would not think that this is a super sports bike or a super bike that's got like near enough 200 brake horsepower sitting under you when it acts like this. This is unbelievable, and partly the reason why I bought this bike and stripped away from the super nakeds. I think when you're looking at this sort of bike, you kind of think to yourself that you're going to be uncomfortable. And you know, let's go back a step. The reason I started looking at hyper nakeds and why I started buying them is because when I had a motorbike, it had to be my main form of transport. And when I was living in Spain, I had a Yamaha R6, and I used that for pretty much everything. I had a little flat, I had a budgie, I had naked women coming around and fanning me with banana leaves and feeding me grapes. And then all of a sudden I got a girlfriend. And then she wanted to jump on the back of my bike and I had to take her everywhere. And the truth of the matter is, if you've ever had a pillion passenger on a sports bike, you know that it is absolute torture. It is so uncomfortable. And I had to look around at something else because I couldn't bear the pain of being on a sports bike with my girlfriend on the back. So that's when I started to get into the hyper nakeds, and that's when I bought a Triumph Speed Triple, and I was just blown away by that bike. But the truth of the matter is, it isn't a sports bike, and since however many years ago that was, I don't know, that must have been 7 or 8 years ago, I've been riding sports bikes on and off, like my friends' bikes. There'd be 7 of us be going out, and you know, we all change bikes over. That's just the kind of guys that we are. So you know, the R1s and the GSX R1000s, etc. You know, even last summer, I think the last time I rode a sports bike was a Gix 1000 K5. And while I love that bike, after an hour, it just starts just feeling really uncomfortable. And with this, I just don't have that feeling, and I don't know how they've designed this bike. I mean, I'm 6'2", so I'm quite a tall bloke, and this just feels so comfortable. And I don't know if it's just that cruise control, and it gives you just that moment just to take your hand off the handlebars, and literally there is literally no weight on my wrists. And when I took it out for a test drive, that is the reason why basically I decided to buy this bike. Now, if I got on this bike on a test ride, and I've spent a couple of hours with this bike already just on a test ride, if I'd got on it and felt uncomfortable, I wouldn't have got it. I just would have stuck with my S1000R, and that is a quick enough bike. You don't really need any more power than what that S1000R has. But with that said, if you can ride a bike, then this is going to be much more fun. And that's partly the reason I did, because it complements my riding, and it's comfortable. When I was test driving this, I was getting my knee down in pretty much every corner. It handles so much better. The front end feels much more stable compared to the R. And I've had people say to me, you know, that I should get a different steering damper on it and that'll sort out the problem. I mean, there was a steering damper on it anyway. I don't know, but I guess my point being is I wasn't going to mess around. I was so blown away by this bike that it's brought me back into sports bikes, and this is exactly what manufacturers should have done pre S1000RR. They should make them comfortable. They should put the power in. They should have put all the electronics on them. Like BMW done. We owe a lot to BMW for the S1000RR. We owe a lot to them, because I don't think that we would have sort of the how can I put it, the equipment that we've got on things like the R1s and the RSV4s and all that sort of stuff if BMW didn't pull their socks up, I think it was in 2009, and just blow the doors off the hinges. One downside to this bike, I think, that I've already clocked of having it, is there's a lot of heat. The frame gets very hot. Not like unbearably hot, but hot enough. When I took it out earlier and she got up to, you know, I was around these sort of speeds, and actually down this road earlier today, and around about 100 degrees, when you're sitting in slow moving traffic, the frame gets really hot. And I know I've read about these bikes running hot, I've done my research on them, and to be honest, it isn't actually that bad. It isn't a massive deal breaker. It's just the way the bike is. But I don't know, I've never really experienced any other sports bike that gets this hot, to be honest. But as I say, it's not a deal breaker. That's probably the only bad thing I can really say about this bike. I think at the moment there isn't too much. Obviously the foot pegs are quite high, but that's to be expected. Now, for me, I'm actually quite a fit bloke, in the sense that, you know, I flipping get in a gym, press ups every day, blah blah blah. What can I say? I'm just fucking sexy. But all joking aside, I guess that what I'm trying to say is this bike fits me so well. It feels like this bike was made for me, and that's the thing. What I found with a test ride, as soon as I jumped on it, I just felt connected with the bike, like instantly. And I don't know if that's because, like, I started riding on sports bike. My first bike that I had when I legally passed my tests was a Suzuki GSXR 600 K5. That was my first bike, and I remember the feeling in this kind of position that I'm in now, and I remember the feeling of being on that K5, and I don't know, this position gives me so much nostalgia. With regards to electronics, that's another reason I bought this bike. It's absolutely fully loaded. It's got everything that you could possibly want. My favourite electronics on this, to be honest, well, there's too many to mention, but the main two that are just jumping out at me straight away is the quick shifter and blipper up and down. That is so much fun, and it really helps to ride this bike properly. And the other thing I absolutely love is this cruise control. I mean, look at this. This is just, it makes riding this bike so much more fun and easy and livable with. Livable with, is that even a word? It makes it easier. It's more livable. I don't know. You know what I mean. And I would go as far as to say that if this didn't have cruise control, then I wouldn't have bought it. I would not be sitting on this bike, because when you're sort of going out with your mates at the weekend, or like what I am, you're not always sitting on the B roads. You're not always, you know, going silly mile an hour. You know, 60 mile an hour, of course, and 70 on the highway. And for those moments, kind of like these moments now, it's nice to just take a break and sit upright and give your back a rest, and oh, it's just perfect. And another thing when riding this bike, when I was on the motorway, like, I was so comfy. Like, I've never been on a sports bike and thought to myself, I can tour on this bike. And I had that feeling with this. I mean, when I remember having my GSXR 600 and I rode that to the Nürburgring however many moons ago, and I think it was about 800 miles there and back, probably more than that actually, I can't remember now, it was a long time ago. And I can remember as if it was yesterday, when I got off my bike when I got home after that holiday, I felt as though that I needed another holiday, and I just wanted to sleep, because that position on that bike, and I was only, I don't know, 24, 25, something like that, so I was even fitter and more sexier back then than I am now. But when I got off that bike back then, I can remember just thinking that this isn't an ideal bike, and that's probably the first time that I actually went touring on any form of sports of motorbike, and subsequently it was a sports bike. The other thing with this bike as well is that it's got serious presence, and people kind of look at this bike, and if you're sort of any sort of petrol head, the S1000RR has got a lot of credibility, both from people that love four wheels and two wheels. And it don't matter what kind of bike you're into, this bike has so much respect, particularly what it's done for arguably every category of motorcycle with the electronics that is put in it. And to be honest, straight away as I'm riding this, and I'm riding it around even for the first few hours, I feel as though that I don't want to say or speak too soon, because I've only literally rode it. This is the first day that I've rode it today, but I don't know if I'm ever going to change to a different motorcycle. I really don't, because it's that good. It's that good. And you know, this probably is not going to be the first video you've watched on YouTube about this bike. Chances are you've watched many. And you know, when you sit there and you're hearing people talk about just how good it is just that good. It really is. And I understand now why, you know, you never find really any bad reviews on YouTube about this bike. So this is her, this is the beast. This isn't the one that I wanted originally. The one that I wanted originally was, well, I'll put it on the screen now so you can have a look at it. This is what I was going to buy, what's on the screen at the moment, and that had 2,000 miles on it. And it was a 2018 model. But I'm not going to go into the reason that BMW dealer couldn't give it to me because it was an absolute shit show. But cut a long story short, that to get that bike that I originally bought was going to take me maybe anything from sort of a month to 6 months before I could ride it, and I did not want to wait that long. Particularly with these summer months. We're in June at the moment, and these are the months that you want your sports bike or your bike to go out and have fun, and I weren't prepared to wait 6 months. So I phoned up BMW, the actual dealer that I put the deposit down on. They kind of had me by the short and curlies, and I chose this. This has got an extra 7,000 miles on it, so it's got 9,000 miles on the clock. And the only thing I would moan about, just like any bike that's got like 9,000 miles on the clock, she's a little bit tired in areas, and that's to be expected cosmetically. Kind of like this grip here, it looks as though that this has been ragged. You can just see it's very tired and worn, and these buttons are a little bit mouldy. Is that an R1? Yes, it is. There he is. There he is, Mr. R1. Oh, he's having some fun. So these buttons you can see are a little bit mouldy, and because I was kind of like, when I was looking at this bike, I'm like, right, if I'm going to buy this, chances are that I know I'm going to have it for a long time. I don't think this is kind of my answer to like the Super Naked, like in the sense of how comfortable it is. When I was test riding it, I was slipping and sliding all over the place, so I've already put the tank grips on there. They were a must. And I'm kind of taking it easy at the moment. Part of the deal that BMW done for me is because of all of the messing around that they've been giving me over the last 2 weeks. They've put a new set of Pirelli Rosso Diablo Corsa 2 Zibbly Zoobly Doo-Doos on it. Which are my tyres. I won't ride with anything else if I can help it. These are my tyres, so they've put those on there. I'm still rubbing them in at the moment. I've probably got about another 100 miles to go, so I am taking it relatively easy. But here she is. This is my BMW S1000RR, and I really am, out of all of the bikes I've ever purchased over like 20 years plus, this for me at the moment really is like, I don't know how to put it. It's kind of quite emotional for me, to be honest. I think I'm going to cry. But all joking aside, what I'm trying to say is that, yeah, I'm really, really happy with this bike, and I can't wait to be making some more videos and taking you guys along with me, as I always do, and talk bullshit. But apart from that, I'm interested to hear from you, you know, because chances are you have either bought an S1000RR when you're watching this, or Thought I would have said something to her then. See you later, my love. Love you. Bye bye. But again, joking aside, you've probably already got one of these and you're just like me and watching these videos to get somebody else's opinion and thoughts on it, or you're thinking of buying one. For me, I mean, again, it's dependent on money and stuff, but the third generation of this bike is the best. Even better than the fourth generation, just through my research. But you know, that's going to be controversial. I haven't actually ridden a fourth generation, but I really don't feel the need to be honest, from a lot of the consensus that I'm getting from the motorcycle community. But again, what do you think of the S1000RR? Have you got one? Are you thinking of buying one? I'm interested to hear from you. Put some doodahs in the doodah below, and yeah, I look forward to seeing you in the next video. And again, you know how it rolls. If you do like some of this content and me talking bullshit, just give it a thumbs up, and I'll see you in the next one.